Today's episode was a very different and unique episode. I know when you work with people living with dementia and you're in the caregiving space, oftentimes we hear about music. What we do not hear as much about is art and how art can truly be therapeutic for a person living with dementia, but even more importantly, how art can truly be a way for you as a family caregiver of somebody with cognitive impairment to connect with them at a deeper and more meaningful level. I want you to listen to today's episode where I speak with Mary Beth Flynn from Artfully Aging, and we explore creativity in aging. And you need to stay to the end of the episode because Mary Beth has a giveaway for people of this program that you can tap into and perhaps use for you and your family members. And yet again, if I resonate with you, I would love for you to reach out and subscribe to this podcast. Go to Apple Podcasts and give me a review on Apple Podcasts. I read them all. They're very, very special and near and dear to my heart because I really am here to change the narrative for family caregivers of people living with dementia to help you decrease your stress, reduce your burnout, and learn how to manage challenging behaviors using science-backed strategies. So check out today's episode. Hey there, success seeker. Welcome to Dementia Caregiving for Families. Do you feel overwhelmed with the daily struggle of dementia caregiving? Looking for an easier path? You're in the right place. On this podcast, we teach you the skills to simplify caregiving. We unravel the mystery of dementia and guide you through the often difficult behaviors. I'm Lizette, your host and fellow family caregiver. As an occupational therapist, I bring my professional and personal experience to this community. Here we speak the truth, but without the verbal vomit. I know you will find value in today's program, so buckle up while this flight takes off. Well, welcome to today's episode of Dementia Caregiving for Families, and I am very excited to bring my first guest on the program related to art. And it's near and dear to my heart because my mom is an artist and has always been an artist. And so I wanted to explore with the founder of Artfully Aging how creativity and aging go together and how we can continue to use our creativity as we're getting older. So welcome to today's program, Miss Mary Beth Flynn. Like I totally butchered that. It's because it says Mary Flynn on the screen at the bottom.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do you go by Mary Beth or do you go by?
I go by Mary Beth.
Okay. So you see, that's what totally messed me up, right?
I'm sorry. It's understandable. We'll give it to you.
Well, welcome to today's program, Mary Beth. I am excited to have you here. So first off, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start to talk about art and creativity and how they work together.
Okay. Well, gosh, thank you so much to talk about. I'm so excited to be here, and thanks for having me, Lizette. So yes, I'm Mary Beth Flynn, and I am the owner, founder of Artfully Aging, a watercolor art program designed for seniors. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, and I am a lifelong artist. All my life, ever since I was a little girl, I like to do art, and my parents fostered that for me. And I also noticed growing up and doing art that I kind of got in flow. Like there was something very calming or soothing, maybe therapeutic about it, which I didn't really identify, except that when I would get lost in my art, I would realized that I got lost in it and something kind of magical happened. So I knew that early on. And I actually majored in interior design because majoring in art probably wasn't going to be very practical. And so I'm not that great of an artist. So, and then I realized something else about that too along the way. But so I worked in design for a number of years out of college, doing commercial interiors, and then I became a stay-at-home mother with 3 little boys, and then pretty soon after that, I became a single stay-at-home mother. And so I needed to find, something to generate some revenue. And I started doing my own artwork. And I thought I'll be a freelance artist.
Mhm.
It was back in 95. And I did that. And I developed a little house portrait business. And paint original watercolors of houses by special order. And I developed that. It was a perfect gig for a stay-at-home mom.
Uh-huh.
And I got a national recognition from that, and did some pretty major marketing. And as house portrait businesses go, they're usually, I call it my little cottage business, and no pun intended.
No pun intended at all.
I got that going, but then, and that was going to sustain me. Well, that was my plan, the best laid plans. Wow. Then the recession hit, and I still had kids at home, and so I had to scurry around and start to try to reinvent myself. People weren't buying house portraits then they weren't flying off the shelf. So I became part of the gig economy, and I had several little jobs. I painted houses. I worked for a floral designer part-time. I went back to an architectural firm where I had worked in my design career and worked there part-time. I got a part-time gig as a home caregiver, which I was never going to do, but I was cobbling my little life together, and it was a little bit stressful. And I also got a little gig through a friend who worked at an adult day center in here in St. Louis doing art, which I had never done taught art, and I'd never worked with seniors. Now, this is back 14, 15 years ago. And I loved it. And I was kind of doing all these things thinking, I got to get my stars to line up, like something's going to happen because I can't keep doing all these different things. And so I decided, hey, I could serve seniors and, do art and develop a program, and that would be very fulfilling, which was really important to me now, do something that really was meaningful. And I could see that it was making a difference in their lives. And so that's by 2010, I had my name and, started developing a website. And I was really doing it all over St. Louis and as a full-time career and developing my program. And then COVID hit. So then, okay, best laid plans. And and I pivoted during COVID, and I thought, hey, how could I serve the communities without going into them? And I could package up a prepared watercolor project, ship it off to them, and then make a little how-to Zoom video and email it to them. Of course, this is all taxing my learning curve, all of that. And
I totally relate to that.
I was like, what's a Zoom video? Well, here we are.
Yes, here we are.
And well, that was somewhat successful. So, and that was all on the DIY, right? And so I had decided that, hey, there's a market for this, and I could make a menu of all my projects on a website, and I could make videos that go with each one. And I could, of course, I'm going to need someone to help me do all that. I have no idea how to put all that together, but the long and short of it is I did hire, a developer, and they helped me build the whole thing and the business, a new business model. And I launched it almost 3 years ago, the new website and with the internet. And so virtually people can use my program now anywhere.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. And it's really mostly in the US right now, but senior living communities, anybody can order it. So I have some senior centers who have been using it, seniors who live independently. Really, my program is for literally everyone, but I developed it and designed it while working with seniors and seniors of every care level.
Of every care level.
Every care level, yes.
Absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about creativity and aging.
Did you know that caring for a person with dementia doesn't have to be this hard? If you are struggling and you would like to join our next free workshop, the topic of the workshop is 3 tips how to avoid challenging dementia behaviors without stress, anxiety, or burnout. I invite you to walk away with science-backed dementia caregiving skills that many professionals don't even know after attending this free workshop. If you'd like to register, message me the word workshop on Instagram or check out the link in the show notes below.
Well, all I can say, the biggest thing I can say, the most important thing is that it's very important. And I think we all know that now, but I think the tendency is to think, well, elderly people, people who are not cognitively with it anymore, like they can't do it. So we won't bother with that. But the reality is that any type of level of engagement is beneficial, and there are lots of benefits to engaging. And it's not it's not at all about being an artist or being a great artist, or it's about finding something within you. Here's a great example. I had a man in a group at a community here, and he came out of corporate America all his life, and now he's living in it was an independent living center, and he came to the group and did the art project, and he worked really hard and diligently on it. He finished. He's like, this is good for the soul.
Yes.
That was such a great testimony, right?
Yes.
So there's something soulful about it. And that's what I knew from my own lived life experience. I knew there was really something about it. I am not an art therapist. This is therapeutic art.
It is therapeutic, very much so.
And the benefits are it's relaxing. So relaxation, cognitive stimulation, creative stimulation. You can have a sense of community. Chances are you have a group, and now we're talking, I think, on specifically home care. That's a community, a caregiver and a client. 2 people make a community, right?
Yep.
And absolutely. So it's socializing. It brings up reminiscing. So often, like, I have 48 projects on my website, and they're all the whole array of topics and genres, like holidays, seasons. There's some still life, there are animals, there are waterscape, just a whole array of everything.
And of life, different parts of life.
Right. They will all elicit different stories, types of stories for people to tell. And one thing I've learned is in doing a group, and often around the end of the project is a good time to do a little reminiscing or storytelling. And it could be a snow scene. And like, what's the story of being out playing in the snow? And of course, we're doing a lot of snow scenes now. And who are you with? And, are you with your children, or are you the child now with your sibling, or, what's going on? And let's talk about sledding. There are all kinds of things you can talk about. And often the group, I'll say, okay, let's have a story. And they'll look at me deadpan. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you a story. One of my stories, and about growing up or playing in the snow, or whatever the project is. And all of a sudden everybody wants to open the floodgates and have a story. So that's all it takes.
Yes. So what I really love about what you're telling me is the connection that people can make with one another through art. Because that's, you
Yes.
mentioned this earlier on in the conversation related to, oh, that person has cognitive impairment, they can't do anything, or this view that people have. And I'll oftentimes have people who are family caregivers of a person living with dementia mention, but mom isn't doing so and so, mom used to do this or that. And I always tell them it's not that they've lost the desire to do the activity necessarily. They have lost sometimes the ability to initiate it and plan it out for themselves. So if you can coincidentally facilitate it, if you can bring them along, if you as the person who's providing care or helping that person, if you can set the stage, then they can still do these activities. And I love the concept of having it already pre-planned and pre-figured out, and all that the person who's the caregiver, who's the family member, who might be a daughter who's still trying to work, or a spouse that's juggling 15 balls trying to keep the household going, but having an activity that's already kind of prepackaged, that you don't have to finish it in one setting. Art you can put away, you can come back to it, you can do it over several days, that a person can sit down and we can get two projects. I can do it, my mom can do it, we can do it together, and then we can connect and we can talk to one another and we can reminisce. So I really love that. Have you had a lot of experience of working with people living with cognitive impairment or dementia that you can tell us a couple of stories about?
Yes. Well, I counted some time ago, maybe 6 or so months ago, I figured out I've led over 4,000 watercolor sessions.
Wow, that's
I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
And all levels, all different skill levels. But the biggest thing, I think, and you kind of touched on this about facilitating it and having it ready, and is people are often afraid. Or they say, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm not." Or they hear watercolor and they're afraid. They're very intimidated. And so, I've had participants come in, and you kind of have to coax them in. Well, I'm not going to make you do it, but maybe you come and sit at the table with us,
Right?
and watch, and then you kind of draw them in. It's kind of like, you can't just take a no, like, no, I'm not coming. You kind of have to work it a little bit,
Yeah.
and use some different tactics, right? And everyone's an artist. Okay.
Everyone, yes.
That's what Artfully Aging says. Everyone is an artist. There's something within all of us, and beauty and perfection have nothing to do with each other. So I will have often participants trying to be perfect, and my projects come with a guide on them, with a graphite guide on them. And I always say, you don't have to stay exactly in the lines, or if you want to change it in any way, please do. And they'll try. And that's very frustrating for them if they can't. And, I always say, I have these little isms, these little sayings I say, and one is beauty and perfection have nothing to do with each other. So let's just stop trying to be perfect, because I can tell you right now, it won't work. Everybody gets a big kick out of that. And they're like, yes, okay, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to be perfect. And so that's one thing. And I have had some participants that have come in and done and been regulars and created art and put it all up in their room, and wanted to tell me about how they were they would know that their husband, who's now deceased, would love it. He would be so amazed at what I'm doing now, that I never did this before. That was my Betty friend at a community here. And I would go to her room with her, and she'd talk about Bill and how he would love to see what she was doing. So yeah, there are just all kinds of stories. And another great one is the hour over already? What? This went so fast.
It went so fast.
Yeah,
It
it went
tells
so
me people are
fast.
very engaged in what they're doing when they're with these art projects. Because yes, you do when you're creating something and you're in that sense of flow, you don't notice the time going by. It's extremely therapeutic on so many different levels. I recently had a patient, she's passed away since she's recently passed away. And I worked in home health, so I would go to people's houses. And I'm always paying attention to what's on the walls because I love art. I took art in high school. My parents have a lot of beautiful artwork in their house. My mom is an artist herself. So I've always enjoyed looking at people's art. And I walked into the house and I kind of saw these paintings on the wall. And I'm like, tell me about these paintings. And she started becoming an artist in her later years of life after she retired. And she had more time on her hands, and she was actually a pretty proficient artist. And it's very gratifying to me to be able to engage people in these types of activities. I know earlier on when you and I were speaking a couple of weeks ago, we talked a little bit about the difference between arts and crafts. Do you want to touch on that a little bit for people?
Did you know that caring for a person with dementia doesn't have to be this hard? If you are struggling and you would like to join our next free workshop, the topic of the workshop is 3 tips how to avoid challenging dementia behaviors without stress, anxiety, or burnout. I invite you to walk away with science-backed dementia caregiving skills that many professionals don't even know after attending this free workshop. If you'd like to register, message me the word workshop on Instagram or check out the link in the show notes below.
So the difference between doing a craft and
Yes.
something artful. Well, so usually doing a craft, it's got some pieces that go, it's something that's going to be assembled and make something beautiful, like a wreath or something to hang on your door or something like that. And that's great. And that's really can be fun, and they can have something that they go away with, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for their own creativity. I guess with our art program, we try to create a whole experience. So it's not just the painting, but it's like the reminiscing. And another great exercise I do with a snow scene or a sailboat on a waves project is do an imagery sensory activity, and that we imagine that we are in that setting.
Ooh.
And what do we hear? What do we smell? And, what do we feel? And, like the salt water or, the salt in the, there are all kinds of things. And so usually in a craft, when you're assembling something like that, you don't necessarily go off into all those details. So in that way, I think in that aspect and some of these aspects we're talking about, make it a therapeutic experience.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things as an occupational therapist, when I 30 plus years ago, went through university, we actually had to do a lot of activity analysis. We had to take an activity, we had to break it down into all the different aspects and steps and so on, and take a look at. And so because of that, we did a lot of craft. We did art too, but we did a lot of crafts. And what's always stuck with me, especially related to dementia caregiving, or people living with cognitive impairment, is oftentimes crafts can be extremely frustrating for them. There's a standard that they need to meet. It should look like something else. And when you're struggling with that component of being able to plan and execute these, that it needs to look exactly the same, it can be
Right.
very frustrating. Whereas with art, there's not as much of it needs to look exactly like the example.
The sample. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's a good point you bring up.
So I'm excited for people to really explore using art as part of their way to connect with their family member who may be living with cognitive impairment, because one of the big things that people always tell me is that they don't know what to do with the person. There's nothing, they're limited with what, and so people get stuck in that loop of, well, there's nothing that I can do. Well, art is something you can do with a person living with cognitive impairment. And it's not only therapeutic for the person living with the cognitive impairment, but I actually think it's more therapeutic for the person who's not living with cognitive impairment, because that person has the opportunity in that session where they're working with their family member to create memories for themselves that are joyful and positive and connect on an emotional level with the person that they may not have when they're doing the caregiving stuff.
Absolutely. And that's why I said it's a community. Two people make a community. And whether it's a caregiver, or a family member who is doing the caring, you develop a different kind of relationship when you do an art activity together. There are different, there are ways to get people engaged who have lost a lot of their capabilities, like a hand over hand.
Exactly.
And one would say, well, they can't do any of that, so we can't do it. And the truth is that there are techniques and ways to engage people on a different level. And if you do the hand over hand, or I call it prompting and cueing, I'm going to outline this, and then I want you to paint it in. And somebody out there might say, well, then they're not doing it, you're doing it. But the point is to engage them in the process.
They're actively engaged.
Yes. And I say, that's okay. I can do, sometimes I paint for it. No, I just want you to paint, and I want to watch you. And they love it.
And that can be therapeutic too.
That's okay. Right. That's fine. Let's do it. And I have a whole table of people, and some can hold the brush and paint and some can't, but I know they want to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And be a part of the group. And it's something magical, something special happens. So
it is wonderful.
Happen at home with two people.
Absolutely. So for people who actually want to connect with you and find your products, where would they go? How can they order it? Do they just go to your website? How can people get a hold of actually either working with you if they're in the St. Louis area, or if there are people who want to actually try some art projects at home?
Yes, it's very easy, and they could just go on the website, artfullyaging.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty lengthy website, but really you want to get to the shop projects page, and that's the whole menu of projects. And they come in packets of prepared watercolor sheets. They actually come in 5s.
Okay.
And you can order it right there, like an order off of Amazon. It's very easy. You don't have to buy, there's no minimum quantity. You can buy 1 packet and try it. There's a aging in place packet on there that you would have. There's a phone number on there to call, and we could set something up, like a little packet with all of the art supplies and prepared sheets. And the phone number is on there. All of our contact information is on the website, artfullyaging.com.
And all of that we'll put in the show notes for people to be able to find easily when the episode goes live.
Okay. And you can also contact me directly by email at contact@artfullyaging.com. And my phone number is on the website. So I would love to talk to you and answer any questions. This is it's art for everyone. So if you're a caregiver and you'd like to do an art project, this is like ready to go. And it gives you just enough guidance to make it so it's for everyone. You don't have to be an artist to be able to help someone through this. All the videos there are how-to videos on there. Everything is there for you. And the videos are included in the price of the watercolor packets. So you just
wonderful. So you've really taken the guesswork out of it for people. They just need to do the project.
Yes, and even the techniques for engaging people, the prompting and cueing, that is in the videos also. Hand over hand demo is in the video. Everything is.
I love that. That is awesome. Well, Mary Beth, thank you so very much. I'm very excited to have connected with you today. I'm really excited to I hope people take you up on the offer of actually getting some of the arts to do art with their family members. One of my biggest passions for this program and for helping family caregivers is to think outside the box, right? To change the way people are thinking about dementia and dementia caregiving, and to really highlight the abilities that people still have. There's so much is focused on the loss,
what they can't do.
Correct. But there is so much that person can still do. And if we're just willing to look outside the box and tap into that, we can create such a different experience for people, both the family caregiver as well as the person who is living with this condition. So I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much. I love meeting you and sharing about Artfully Aging. And don't forget, there's some giveaways involved.
Yes, ma'am.
You'll list that, and
we'll put that in the show notes as well for people.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Well, maybe you can give them a teaser and tell them what it is.
Well, there's some free packets involved.
Ooh, so you guys need
to go to the notes.
Yep. Check out the show notes. Go check out artfullyaging.com and connect with Mary Beth. She is a wonderful resource for you. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next show.
Great. Thank you, Lizette. I loved it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining me today, Success Seeker. I pour my heart and soul into this program to serve you. You can serve me by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. And join our free Facebook group, Dementia Caregiving for Families. It's a positive and proactive space to navigate dementia caregiving together. Get practical tools and find support, but without the verbal vomit. Be a part of our community where we seek to find peace of mind and ease despite a dementia diagnosis. So join today and see you next time as our flight takes off.